Hi everyone! You may have seen in a video about a month or two ago that I took in a new jumping spider and set up a nice enclosure for it to live in. Well, he has settled into his new home really well. His name is Chris with a K. And since that last video, I've actually taken in another jumping spider as well. This one is a female and her name is Chris with a C. And don't ask me about the names. They're just both Chris. Yeah. Anyway, today I'm going to do a quick update video on the jumping spiders and how they're doing. I always end up catching and keeping 2 or 3 jumping spiders every summer. I look at it as they're the lucky few that got to live in a luxury apartment where food is abundant and the weather's always perfect. I always say I'm not going to keep another jumping spider because they have such short lifespans, but then I just can't help myself. I understand people having a fear of spiders. I really do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if there is any spider that you can actually call adorable, it would be a jumping spider. They have such cute faces. And if you spend enough time watching them, you can see that they're full of personality. Being very visually oriented creatures, they have excellent eyesight, and they're always watching everything. If you move in a circle around their enclosure, you can see that they'll constantly turn and move to keep their eyes on you. And it's almost like you can watch them thinking. Jumping spiders love bright light. They're attracted to it and they'll be more active and out in the open when they have good exposure to bright light. But it's kind of difficult to figure out how to put a bright light just over such a small enclosure. I have my crested gecko's enclosure sitting on this small table and there's a shelf space below. So I attached a bright LED light to the underside of the table and it's perfect. In the past, giving the jumping spiders a bright light was something I didn't really take the time to do. But seeing now how much more active they are in that light, I see now that it's worth the extra trouble to figure that out. I was able to get some really good video of Chris using his mouth to groom his feet and legs. All spiders do this. Aside from having excellent eyesight, the hairs on their bodies and the nervous system that's attached to them are a huge part of how they see and interpret everything around them. So it only makes sense that they need to keep their feet nice and clean. Chris has made the typical web hammocks that jumping spiders do in the corners of his enclosure, and a few of them are even connected by tubings of silk. He spends a huge amount of time constantly building new webbing and repairing old webbing that broke. He seems to never get tired. Plus, when jumping spiders explore around, which they do a lot, they're always leaving a safety line running behind them. That way, if they're attacked by a predator or need to jump away for some reason, they can just fall down on their safety line. And Chris's enclosure has now become completely lined with a matrix of these single lines of thread. Sometimes he can climb the entire length of the enclosure and his little feet never touch the plexiglass because he steps from one line of silk to the next. So I actually don't have any video of Chris with a C because very soon after finding her, she did this. She not only made a web hammock to sleep and hang out in, she built a very thick fortress of webbing and barricaded herself inside of it. It's really like a thick cocoon. I knew from other visual cues that this spider was a female, And while at first I just thought she was a large, well-fed adult, it dawned on me that she was a gravid female. And this web is a little more special because she laid a sack of eggs in it. The funny thing is that when I took this spider in, I put her in this tarantula cribs spiderling mini cuboid enclosure with the canopy top added. It was going to be temporary until I was able to get a larger enclosure for her. So as it turns out, this was the perfect place to put her. The ventilation holes are small enough that slings can't escape. And taking care of some slings might be fun if they hatch. I'll be sure to make a video about it if they do. And at some point when Chris decides to come out of this web, I'll be sure to show her to you too. Actually, I haven't seen much of this spider yet myself. Being wild-caught spiders, I don't know exactly how old they are, but they're definitely mature adults. You can tell this on the male because he's developed large tibial clubs on the end of his pedipalps, which are his two front shortest legs that aren't actually legs. And the female is huge and laid an egg sac, so yeah. At this point, they'll only live for about another year or two at the most. Knowing that's not a lot of time, I'll be sure to do more updates on them in the future. And I hope you enjoyed catching up with Chris and Chris. And I appreciate you watching. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.